Hello, listeners! Welcome to the second episode of Mga Kwento ng Ako ni Lola Bashang. I am your host, Maxine, and joined with me today are my fellow co-hosts, Angela and Merv. Guys, introduce yourselves naman.
Hi guys, I am Angela. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Maxine.
Hi, I'm Merv, and thanks for having me too.
Okay, hello guys. So we will kick off this podcast with postmodern feminism as our first topic. Before anything, let me define this for you. Postmodern feminism involves the postmodern and post-structuralism theory, basically puts a focus on women in social, cultural, and even political contexts, highlighting their characters in different settings. Postmodern feminists lean toward the idea that women are still victims of a patriarchal society and are still somewhat inferior to men, thus being open-minded to ideas that fight such stereotypical roles. You can think of it as the concept of no longer applying past stereotypes of women and instead the opposite. Gets ba, guys?
Yes, it's like being on the side of women, yet acknowledging that they are not a superior gender, or the other way around with men.
Agree. This concept does not put any emphasis that both genders are equal. It's what basically entails, which, while pushing the facts that men still currently overrule women in a general sense, hence giving ideas that no longer succumb to stereotypical norms.
Exactly. It may have seemed more redundant, but that is, in its most basic form, what postmodern feminism means. Now, guys, it's a conversation. I would like to provide some questions and prompts for my co host to answer or react to that hopefully spark thought or conversation to even you, the listener, and something that you may hopefully ponder on even after this episode. Ready, guys?
Yep.
Ready?
Did you hear what I just asked? I said, ready, guys? And both of you answered, even if you, Angela, are not a guy. Obviously, they have been an act upon instinct kind of thing, but may I know your thoughts on this phrase and your opinion on whether or not this should be changed so that future generations no longer use this? Or does this for you not really matter?
Okay, so the term guys is used almost every time, and like it's been normalized in the society. Though I've read some articles that a lot of people felt like the term is kind of offensive. Therefore, they were actually pushing for a more gender neutral term. For me naman, I honestly don't have a problem with it, pero I just think that it's time that we incorporate or like we start using gender inclusive pronouns in our everyday conversations.
That's a very interesting and obviously very valid take. How about you, Merv? May I know what you think? As a literal guy, it makes sense that you would reply to me saying that without any hesitation. Or do you think you replied out of pure instinct as well? And not because I said ready, guys. You could just give me any of your thoughts on this too.
For me, I answered purely on instincts as well, but I have not. There's nothing wrong with the phrase for me, but it may be changed to be more specific.
Good, good take. Personally, I find it interesting how society grew into that phrase and saw it as the default. Not only that, but in many other contexts and other defaults in life, it's always the male specific gender that holds the title. I don't really have anything against it like both of you guys, at yung mga sinabi nyo, since it's worked fine for many years. Just quite, yun nga, interesting to see that those things are basically proof of how male dominated the world has been for so long. While I am not necessarily needing for a change, it would be good to have one, just like Angela said. One that encompasses all other genders. Since a lot of influence then still comes from the West, maybe they can start making gender neutral terminology a more mainstream thing, like adopting the concept of the famous gender neutral Filipino word, siya. SIYA, siya. Even though this can directly be translated into they or them in English, it still differs since this is singular. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I see how that can work. It is more inclusive, which is of importance, especially, in this day and age where gender is widely accepted as a spectrum now more than ever.
I agree. This direction may also be the start of a shift of mindset since many still see society as a whole as a patriarch because of little things such as these.
If you are a listener, try to share your thoughts on these online and spark conversation with friends, family, and peers. Who knows? Baka you're the next trend center for something big that the future may greatly benefit from. But now, let's get to the more technical and serious side of postmodern feminism. In a political context, where do you guys personally think women stand? Let's close it to the Philippine government para mas relevant yung conversation.
Well, for me, it is quite disappointing to see very few women in the Philippine government. Inequality really prevails in the country up to this day, and not just in the political sense. Not only now, but throughout the country's history, it has always been such a male dominant. And while it is not necessarily wrong, I know for a fact that things would have been very different if women were more involved in leading our country.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Although I feel like it also stems from the very quote unquote traditional like thinking of Filipinos and Filipino families in general. It's disappointing to think that many of which believe that women should partake, and they also might even believe that women would be better in exclusive roles such as, in the medical or educational fields only. A popular one for the millennial generation is nursing. This was pushed by many of their families, specifically parents, to take as a course in college, hence the influx of Filipino nurses here in the country and even abroad. Back to the political context, I would personally want to see more women seated at higher positions in our government because, innate behavior of women, such as our gentle approach to stressful situations and patient reasoning, would bring a lot to the table too.
I have to agree with that. Also, like if you look at the female presidents the Philippines has had, and it seems crazy to think that there has only ever been two that led the country. Tapos one of them just became president dahil they were VP and the president at the time resigned. Nonetheless, I know that this still does not equate to women being inferior in society in terms of skills. I just think that in a real sense, the opportunities given to women were not the same as the ones offered to men. This would then obviously result in a biased scenario where men would be put on top, and because of that, they are always seen at the top, never women. Which leads me to the next round. This may be kind of hard. Bear with me, but I think you guys can do it. So, you are the president of a country, and you have to make a choice for a group that will make up for your cabinet. Would you choose a group of white but very, very knowledgeable women who are essentially at the peak of intelligence, or a group made up of multicultural women? These would be a very diverse group of women that come from different places. The thing is, most of these places are third world countries like the Philippines. So parang if you compare the education of a white woman from the first group that I mentioned and the education that a Filipina received in the Philippines, obviously it's not up to par and not even near the same level. For the latter group, because of their backgrounds, they hold different experiences, while the white women hold logic and great knowledge. Which group would you choose to make up your cabinet that would help you lead your own country?
Interesting. I would have to say that yes, you are right. Both answers are valid. If I were to choose the group of well educated white women that would, practically secure a safe term for me, as I would see my cabinet to be very reliable, since I would assume that in most problems and situations, they would think logically and critically, making making the best decision possible for me to take. That is also best for the country I am leading. However, if I were to choose the group of multicultural women who too have been educated, they would provide this diverse set of perspectives that my country may greatly benefit from. Especially if you think about the fields that are under the cabinet, which are human services, labor, urban development, and agriculture, to name a few. While they might not be the smartest group, they may be the wisest. And because of that, I would have to go with the latter choice since I was raised giving more importance to morals. As a president, my focus would be on people as individuals as well, not just see them as a singular group under my country. I believe that the group of multicultural women would be able to provide that, a sense of diversity that may help my term in many ways, as they hold such different experiences and perspectives.
I have to agree with with what Angela said. Choosing between groups of white women and multicultural women both have many benefits than the opposite. And just like Angela, I was raised in a household that gave more importance to one's character than one's abilities to answer a test and getting a perfect score. Therefore, I too would have to go with the latter. But I must say that there is no doubt that the group of white women that hold great intelligence would for sure lead my country into new heights, especially in economic terms. This is since their focus would be on improving the country as a whole and develop it well without making too much sacrifices. Because of this, it's what makes the choice very valid as well. But the choice I made was the result of something very personal and no way rejecting or invalidating the initial group because they are white or because I find intelligence to be of less importance. I don't. But yes, that's basically my answer to the very challenging question.
Thank you so much, Angela and Merv, for answering honestly. I know na baka nahirapan kayo to answer that on the spot, but what you guys said really made me think. And I'm sure that the listeners would have to agree with me on that. So, on behalf of all of us, thank you for sharing your point of view. Now, I might have just juiced up the brain power of Merv and Angela. So, before I end, how were your guys' experiences this day?
Okay, grabe. I didn't expect that it would be this insightful. I really learned a lot, and I hope we get to make another podcast that's very, insightful and knowledgeable. Thanks for having me.
Same here. It's very informative, and thanks for having me too.
Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Mga Kwento ng Mga Apo ni Lola Bashang. Tune in to the next episode, which is hosted by Angela, because she will be tackling on social construction feminism. You would not want to miss it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.